Hey there, folks. It's Aaron here to remind you that you could do your part to save the environment by helping us spread awareness of saving the environment. The best way to do that is, of course, going out and doing environmental things. Or you could give us money on our Patreon at patreon.com/evacstation. If our podcast is going, we can spread more awareness through our podcast. And then we can even read comments that you guys leave for pro-environmentalist messages and all that kind of fun stuff. So help us, help you, help us spread this message with our podcast by going to patreon.com/evacstation. And on with the show. Steel and silver sing for justice. Keen to the scent, the hunt is my muse. A means to an end, this path that I choose. Lost and aloof are the loves of my past. Wake the white wolf, remembrance and last. Podcasting is suffering. It is hard. The internet and social media are cursed. But still, you find reasons to keep on podcasting. We are Aaron Washitaka. And with me today I have Ryan Mononoke. There was no better name. And that intro song you heard this week is Wake the White Wolf by Miracle of Sound. I don't think there's anything better fitting for this.
Perfectionist. That's perfection.
Oh yeah, I love Miracle of Sound. I hope I can use more of his tracks for these shows. This is great stuff. So this week we're talking about the legendary Princess Mononoke. Does it live up to the hype, or are we going to fucking rip it a new one? Stay tuned to find out. Before we get to that, Ryan, what you been watching?
Oh, well, let's see here. This week, I actually watched something I didn't expect to watch. I was in the midst of a YouTube binge while eating dinner, and I was checking out a couple of shows from Geek and Sundry, and I happened upon a YouTube a series called Spellslingers. Okay. Now, this is a show where a pro gamer goes by the tag Day9. He invites geeky celebrities to come onto the show and play Magic with him. And it's a really cool show. It's a lot of fun. It takes the time to kind of explain some more of the concepts behind Magic. And inadvertently, it kind of rekindled my desire to play Magic just a little bit. So, instead of going to the nearest store and throwing away hundreds of dollars like I did in my last addiction fall off the wagon, I bought Magic 2014 on Steam. It costs $20, and I've been playing Magic on my computer just to pass the time, which is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. I was a Yu-Gi-Oh kid myself. I never got into Magic, but I loved Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid. And one thing I always loved is where I could stop buying the cards and just buy the Game Boy Advance games, which literally had like every card of the sun just in one cartridge for $30. I'm like, why can't every game do this? Why can't they just make it a digital version for those of us who don't want to lose our life savings buying that one rare card we need to get to make that awesome strat happen?
Because capitalism.
Sadly. That's why I'm a big fan of Tabletop Simulator and shit like that, so you can at least try the games out before you buy them. And other cool shit like that. But yeah, no, that sounds pretty cool, man. I think I played one of the Magic the Gathering games on PC, because a buddy of mine insisted on it, and I'll say this much, I've always wanted to dabble in it, but because I got into the Magic, or the MTG game late, I didn't want to spend money on the cards, so I'm always like, if I can find a cheap alternative way just to play the game, like on a computer or some shit, I would just rather do that.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I had ended up getting into it in high school because I had friends who loved it and had been playing for years, so they got me into it, and I definitely enjoyed it, but I did not enjoy the chase of having to spend hundreds of dollars hoping upon hope to get some really good cards or paying more hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get specific cards to build a particular deck, and it's just, nah, I hate that shit.
Well,
I don't have that money.
Well, luckily for me, once when I was into Yu-Gi-Oh! And when I was getting paid, half the time I'd be like, hey, could you just give me Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards instead? Oh, I look back at those days and I think to myself, Aaron, you could have gotten like $10 whole to do something with. Instead, you bought these fucking worthless pieces of paper. What the fuck is wrong with you?
We were babbies, man.
I hope to instill a lesson upon my kids if they want to play a collectible card game to find the video game version of it first and see if they like it there. At least, because I mean, I'll have a system for it probably, so they'll have the opportunity. All right. Are you ready for my week?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I have decided to jump ahead many moons and watch Lost World: Jurassic Park because I was on a kick. I downloaded the dinosaur park builder game for my phone, and I've been on a kick for Jurassic Park again. So I thought, you know what? We got the DVD recently, and we have a free afternoon. Let's watch some fucking Jeff Goldblum magic here. And so we spent the afternoon watching that film, and it was a good time. Good time.
Nice.
I will stand by my assertion I've been making to friends of mine. I don't remember if I mentioned it here on the podcast or not, but I think I like the original trilogy, the whole trilogy, to an extent more than the newer movies. That being said, I think the story of the last two are still better than the third movie, but that's besides the point. That was because I think the first three movies do a better job capturing what a dinosaur would actually behave like and look like. And I'm not trying to down anybody, but the first movies, they feel more like actual creatures in the space rather than just like these big cartoon animals. And while I like some of what Fallen Kingdom does, I have to admit, some of those dinosaurs act like fucking cartoon animals.
Yeah, I still need to see Fallen Kingdom, but you brought it up in the past, yeah.
Yeah, so, still holds up. I really enjoy it. I think it's probably my second favorite movie of the bunch, but I'm also biased because Ian Malcolm is the best person in the world. So, yeah, go check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Which I don't know why they wouldn't. It's been like, what 20 years? Gotta be close to that by now. Okay, so, before we get into the actual meat of the episode today, I do want to make one quick correction. So last week we talked about Whisper of the Heart, and I'm going to actually double check my schedule to make sure that the schedule... Yep. So last week we talked about Whisper of the Heart. Great movie. We gave it some good scores. And we mentioned that that was his director's only Studio Ghibli film that he did with a company. We didn't really explain why, because I didn't do further research. My apologies. So as it turns out, Yoshifumi Kondo, who is the director of Whisper of the Heart, was also scheduled and slated to do Princess Mononoke, which is what we're talking about today. However, during production of Princess Mononoke, he did pass away. And so the reason why he didn't come back for Cat Returns or for anything else, despite how talented he seemed to be, is because he's no longer with us. So I thought I'd bring that up now to let everyone know and kind of give more context to what happened last week. So, yeah. Definitely something I didn't expect to find out about anything that's on here.
I definitely feel a little bad ripping into the second one so hard.
Well, like I said, though, it's not his fault. He wasn't there to save it.
Right.
And yeah. Okay. And then there's another director we'll talk about here later on. He has at least one more movie under the Ghibli belt who has also passed away. It's not Miyazaki. Calm down, everybody. But he has done a few movies that we've actually liked, including my personal favorite. And Ryan, I think you actually really enjoyed his other movie, Only Yesterday. But we'll get to him in a few weeks. So, good guys. These are all good directors. I really love all the work they do. Okay. With that quick correction out of the way, let's move on to today's film. Today's SummerSlam, which, again, I'm well aware, everybody, that it is currently, at the time of airing this episode, September 31st. We're now officially in fall. Fuck off. Wait, is it 31st? Let me make sure I'm looking at the right one. That's record date. Oh, fuck, this is going to be September 12th. Yeah, so, yeah, I know it's not really summer. Just chill. But this week on the SummerSlam, we have the Studio Ghibli Titan, Princess Mononoke, which was released in 1997. A fine year indeed. Since release, this film has grossed a total of $159,375,000 worldwide, And, until Titanic, it was the highest grossing film in the Japanese box office. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
The English dub features notable names such as Billy Bob, my favorite, John DiMaggio, Claire Danes, John DeMita, and Jada Pinkett Smith.
Wait, what?
Yeah, she was in this one.
Who does Jada voice?
I want to say she plays Mononoke, but I'm going to double check for you just to make sure.
No.
What's the movie again? Mononoke, IMDb. Let's see, cast and crew. Here we go. I'm gonna just talk out loud as I'm doing this here, so everyone knows what I'm doing. She plays Toki, so I don't think she doesn't play the main girl. She plays Toki, so I think one of the ladies in the village.
Oh, okay, I got you.
I don't remember which one Toki was. I feel bad now. I think she might have been
I think she was like the foreman, essentially.
Yeah, the outspoken one. Yeah, I think she was. Let's see. Princess Mononoke, we're going to win 13 separate awards. Holy fuck. Including Best Home Video Release from the Academy of Sci-Fi, Fantasy, and Horror Films. Best Foreign Language and Best Animated Film at the Awards Circuit Community Awards. Best Film and a special award given to the singer of its theme song from the Awards Circuit Community Awards. Did I do that twice? Whatever. Best Film at the Cinema Junpo Awards. Best Film, Best Animated Film, and Best Film Reader's Choice at the Mainichi Film Concours. And 2 awards from the Nikon Sports Film Awards. Miyazaki himself would also go on to win a few additional awards, including the Blue Ribbon Award, the Hochi Film, and the Best Director from the Nikon Sports Film Awards. Whew, that's a lot of awards, man.
Yeah, it deserves them.
Oh no, I'm not debating that. I just wanted to point that out, that this is probably the heaviest award movie we're gonna have. Maybe. When
Aaron first put forth the idea of possibly doing a Studio Ghibli Fest, this was the one I was the most excited to see. So, and he had never seen it before we had actually done this project. So it was so vindicating when he texted me. He said, "I just saw it. Oh my god, I did not expect to like it as much as I did." And I was like, "Yep, there it is. I told you."
We'll get into it. I have one bonus fact though here. It's a long one, but I think it's very timely and very fitting for what we're going to discuss here today. Are you ready, Ryan?
Yes, sir.
So when Harvey Weinstein obtained the North American distribution rights to this film, he approached director Hayao Miyazaki and insisted on a shorter version of the film that would be better attuned for American audiences. However, Miyazaki was still so upset by the heavily cut version of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, which we did discuss as the Wind Warriors, Warriors of the Wind, that's what it was, that he angrily left the meeting. Several days later, Studio Ghibli producer Toshio Suzuki sent a katana sword to Weinstein's office with a note embedded in the blade saying, "No cuts." The film would later release in the USA in its uncut version. When asked about this incident in an interview, Miyazaki simply smiled and stated, "I defeated him. Fuck you, Harvey Weinstein."
I defeated him. Oh my god, that's the greatest.
Miyazaki, I think.
Oh my god! All right. That's a fantastic fact.
That's probably one of the best ones I've ever seen. It goes here. So, Ryan, initial thoughts. What do you got for me?
So I think I've already given them, but god damn it, I love this movie.
I just need a sound bite, that's all.
God damn it, I love this movie. It is fantastically animated. It has something for everybody. It has a lot of comedy. It has a lot of action. It has a lot of suspense, and it has a very poignant message that really echoes across regardless of when you watch it. So yes, I love this movie.
All right, I'll keep my bit short because I have a synopsis to get to here. For me, it is both obvious and complex, detailed but simple, action-packed but relaxed and deliberately slow at points, Without a doubt, this is probably Ghibli's and Miyazaki's best work to date. With that, I'm going to get into the synopsis. Are you ready, Ryan?
Get it, get it, get it.
Alright, I don't know how funny this is going to be. We'll see how it goes. A worried pig monster attacks the ever-shrinking Emishi village. Prince Ashitaka, I forgot how to pronounce that name for a minute there, defends his village from the attack, but is touched by this corrupted forest god during the incident. The god, with his dying breath, spits his hatred for humanity at the villagers as he decays into this radical-looking skeleton. Ashitaka is forced to leave the village as contact with the beast has caused necrotic damage to his flesh. His only clue as to where to go is the iron ball found in the pig's monster's stomach. He hops on his trusty steed, Yakul, bids his sister farewell, and leaves, unable to return. Along the way, he encounters a small group of samurai attacking villagers elsewhere. Ashitaka attacks, but his mark arm spazzed out, and it gives him some modified strength. Even though technically Dex is used for range attacks, but I'm not going to get into that right now. And his arrows brutally murder the samurai. This catches the attention of a sly old monk named Jigo. We'll go with Jigo. Who listens to Ashitaka's story and tells him about the mining town named Iron Town, just down the way. Speaking of which, Iron Town. Transport is under attack by some wolves. Their leader, Iboshi, hurries her people along, telling them to leave behind the supposed dead survivors of this attack and helps them cursed forest back to Iron Town himself. They greet him, feed him, and even offer to sex him up, I think. Ashitaka explains his situation to Iboshi, who kind of just brushes him off as she doesn't really care about the forest, but more for profit, and defeating the Asano samurai, who now want their profitable land. The wolves attack. Ashitaka intervenes, explaining to both the masked girl, our Princess Mononoke, aka San, and Lady Eboshi, that they are filled with hate and their stroke will only bring more suffering to them and the forest around them. Ashitaka takes San back to her wolf family, but gets a bullet wound in the process. It's just a flesh wound. It's fine. He and Yaku are taken to a deep part of the forest where only spirits and gods are supposed to go. Ashitaka's San thanks him for saving her life. Kind of. He learns the plight of the forest creature shows up, declaring war on the humans. He pleads to stop them, but they refuse to listen. Old Man Jigo and Eboshi are off on a mission to kill the forest spirit, the one who actually healed Ashitaka, and is the heart of the forest itself. Jigo manipulates Eboshi and her people in order to get the forest spirit's head, like Cheney manipulated Bush into taking the head of Hussein. The effects here are far more devastating as the forest spirit turns into a plague-like entity, draining the life of the whole forest and killing anything in its path. The people of Iron Town are saved when Ashitaka and San return the head to the forest spirit, dies for the sins of the humans. Its death removes the forest to the lush green hills it once was. Left to ruminate that they will work to rebuild Iron Town to be better than before. Ashitaka and San say their heartfelt goodbyes as they are lovers forced to separate. Ashitaka wants to help Iron Town rebuild and keep them from making the same mistakes, while San goes to restore the forest and remove any lingering damage from the corruption. Ryan, your thoughts on this movie?
Man, there are a lot of packed messages in this particular movie. It's really easy to just kind of get caught up in the, oh, well, this guy got cursed, and so he had to leave his home to find the remedy, and in the midst of it, he had to save these people and also save the forest, and that's the movie, and it's great. But I think what really carries out, at least for me personally, is there's no central main villain.
You took one of my questions already. I like it.
Because the story does a very amazing job, really giving everybody good reasons for what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's easy to villainize San and the wolves who are just fucking killing humans like all willy-nilly. But of course they're doing that because the forest itself is dying from human presence that are just kind of greedily taking the forest reserves and actively poisoning it and killing the gods. It's really easy to turn around and villainize Lady Eboshi, who is just doing all this stuff for her own gain, when it turns out that everything she does is to ensure the survival of the people that she has taken under her care, who she cares for like a mother and will do anything to save. So everybody...
And even Jigo is actually not necessarily a straight villain either, because while he does go for the whole assassinating the spirit, he's doing it not for himself, but for the king he's been hired to work for. It's not really his doing, but more just what the king wants: immortality, and has a very blind idea of how to get it.
Honestly, I would say Jigu is the closest thing to a villain.
And that's still a stretch, honestly.
It's still a stretch. The only reason I say that he's the closest thing to a villain is because I think his primary motivation was greed. Like, while he is working for the king, absolutely, he's a bounty hunter. It's not like he's a die-hard, loyal servant to the king who just wants his king to live forever in harmoniousness and whatnot. He's been paid to kill a god by the king, and he's gonna get boatloads of gold when he gets back with it.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's like he's the closest thing I would say to a villain, but he's still really three-dimensional, so it's not as easy to just paint him into the corner that way.
Yeah. This actually brings me to a good question then about Jigo, since we're on the villains topic real quick. Was it obvious Jigo was a villain from the start, or was it more of a surprise when we finally get towards the kill the forest spirit segment?
I wouldn't say it was a surprise, but I would say it was definitely a slow reveal. Okay. I mean, it wasn't like this is the guy who shows himself to be the kindly old man, and then like in the third act he takes a fucking mask off and is like, "Haha, I was the devil."
It's Old Man Jenkins, the man who haunts the amusement abandoned cemetery.
Yeah, that guy. No, it wasn't a Scooby-Doo twist.
Get him, Scoob.
I think it was just as we spent more time with him, more and more of his character was shown. So it was never that he was outright lying. I feel like everything he showed to various characters was the truth. And it just really describes how complex and how three-dimensional of a character he actually was. So he could be that kindly, world-wise traveler that helps this kid out who's been fucked up by circumstances that are completely outside of his control. But he's also that guy who's trying to make it in this cruel world by hooking up with skilled people and getting paid to do impossible shit. So yeah, he's both.
All right. I definitely agree with your assessment, though, on the fact that the villains kind of are the quote-unquote villains, I should say, are all three-dimensional. Like, for example, look at Lady Eboshi, for example. She takes in all these different prostitutes and gives them actual jobs and treats them like actual people, gives them better food and health, gives them a good home. You can't really say she's all bad if she's doing stuff like that for people who are in bad situations. I think there's, like you said, there's definitely more to these characters than almost any other film I think I've seen. But especially if we're just looking at the Miyazaki Ghibli films, they are definitely some of the most fleshed out 3D characters we've had in this whole thing. And it's definitely refreshing. Not that any of the characters we've seen thus far are bad, but just to have these characters who are so much more human than anything we've seen so far is very impressive. I guess this leads me to my next question here, which is kind of it's a multiple question, so I'll read it all out here and you can break it down. Is San a good figure / icon for women in feminism? And likewise, can the same be said about Eboshi? And is Eboshi all bad?
Ooh, so that's good.
I think San is definitely is a good figure and icon for women in feminism. I think just this.
Let me hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, so let's just start with San. That's an easy one. I'd say yes, she is a good icon because she is an empowered person making her own decisions to take active steps to protect what she cares about. and she's making active choices in the film, and so she is definitely not just a good icon, but also a good character. And I think that's the important thing. You can have a powerful woman be this icon in your film, but if they're just this badass woman, like, for example, I'm trying to think of a good one. The one girl from Aliens, not the main one, but the gun-happy one, the trigger-happy one. Can't remember her name, but they painted her to be kind of like this badass fucking military girl, but the problem is that she feels a little two-dimensional, because all she is just, I'm gonna shoot this shit and fuck up stuff. Whereas San, yeah, that's kind of her thing too, but she has reason, she has motives, and she isn't badass and murdering things all the time. She does have moments of vulnerability that make her feel like a person. And so, yeah, I would say she definitely fits that role pretty well. Before I get to Eboshi, what are your thoughts here?
You know what? I really like that, honestly. The idea that a good icon, a good feminist icon, isn't somebody who's just a badass and can do everything that men do, but also can take the time to be human and be vulnerable and have these really fleshed out desires and a lot of agency in their choices and what they're actually doing. Like, you'll notice that, like, none of the stuff that she does is for the sake of
Ashitaka.
Like, it's never, her story never becomes about him, or at least, like, a small part of it does, because he saved her and he took a bullet for her and he's in the midst of dying, so she's like, okay, I'm gonna get him to the forest spirit who will heal him if like, I owe you one. But her main story is always about the forest, and I think the best thing that they did for her story is at the very end she chose to stay in the forest. Like, Ashitaka was going back to the village because he wanted to help them rebuild and help them do shit better in the future. And she really cared for him and really liked him, but, like, she could not forgive the humans for what they did. Well, so that was the strongest character choice I've seen, and I'm like, that's really, really good stuff. Well, it solidified her as a character.
Well, and to add to that, too, I think, and we're going to get off topic for a minute here, but I think the reason they couldn't go into each other's worlds is pretty obvious to me. He couldn't join her in the forest because the forest, the creatures there, wouldn't accept him. He is not one of them. She's been around the wolves her whole life, as far as we know. And so, yeah, she's accepted hands down. But he's been in man's world this whole time. Him trying to join in with her, just even though they love each other, they wouldn't accept him, and they both knew it. And I think the reverse is almost true for San, because she was, for lack of a better word, a terrorist to the people of Irontown. Admit it, she basically was.
That's real. No, that's real. I will definitely agree with you on why San couldn't have gone to the city if needs be. I think Ashitaka would have made it in the forest because he is a human who is respectful of the forest. And I think you see that as Ashitaka is going about, he actually gains the respect of a couple of the gods, like San's mother included.
True.
I think he had a better shot of living in the forest than she did in the city, but I like that their main choices to go where they were going to go reflected what they wanted to do with their life. Like, he wanted to help others be better and build a home there because he had no home. He had been exiled from his village. He couldn't go back. Consequently, the forest is her home, and she wanted to rebuild that. So they both made decisions that were important for their character motives and not just for each other. So they steered so clear out of that trope, it was the greatest thing.
And I do like how at the end they still say they'll see each other from time to time. So they're still...
They're going to do a long distance thing. It's going to be fine.
It's sweet. It's cute. I love it.
It's really cute.
Okay, before we get too off topic here, back to the Lady Eboshi real quick.
Eboshi. Such a good character.
So I'll let you take the lead on this one. So feminism icon question, but for Eboshi instead of San. What do you think?
Well, I mean, definitely big... ideals in terms of feminism, not only having the will and the power to get shit done in a man's world and really rival like the most powerful men in the land, which is why the king was sending all these samurais like at her, but also turning around and having that kind of maternal instinct to care for others. I think really goes back to what you were saying about San, how it's not, you can't just have someone who's a badass, and you can't just have somebody who's in their feelings. A true feminist, like amazing character will represent both equally, be awesome as well as human, as well as vulnerable, as well as feminine. So I think Eboshi also does that in a slightly harder way, I would argue, because she was a little more ruthless in terms of what she was willing to do.
But I think that's good, though. I think having these two different types of feminist icons in one film being rivals to each other and not even fighting over any men or anything like that, but over the ideals that they both represent is a very good way to do this. And I think it's amazing that this is from the Studio Ghibli movie brand, which, no offense, but they have had some movies where they've had some less than ideal characters representing sexist ideals.
Right.
Not gonna shout any names out here, Porcarosso, but okay. Speaking of male characters, what does this film say about the ideal male role model? I'm hitting some deep questions.
Well, we're gonna just flat out say that Ashitaka is meant to be like the perfect person. Yes. Like, period.
but okay. So let's dive into that then. So Ashitaka is this character who's supposed to be the ideal role model. What exactly does he bring to the table that the traditional male role model doesn't bring to the table?
Well, I mean, while also hitting the points that all male role models should, quote unquote, have, being strong, being skilled, being chivalrous, being noble, all that good stuff, he also shows respect. He also shows deference. He's not, I want to say he's merciful, because when you think about his situation, like literally, he was in his own like town, his own village, minding his own business, when a demon caused by the warring of like faraway lands shows up, and he risks everything and ends up getting cursed and losing his entire home just to save his village. So we got nobility and chivalry out the way. Perfect. But when he then takes this horrible situation that he's been thrust on and journeys to the land that caused it, he instead shows no hatred towards the people that caused his situation. His life is essentially ruined. Yeah. He's lost everything that he's been working towards, yet his arm literally has to be coerced by a demon to even make an aggressive attempt towards Eboshi, when anybody would obviously be pissed because Eboshi fucking around with this forest has caused his life to be ruined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll add to that too, that I don't know if I'm using the right word here, but I think there's a level of nuance to the character that I think really brings him home to me. I like that he doesn't choose a side at the beginning, and he doesn't really choose a side at all. He chooses to kind of help bring balance to this whole situation rather than help the forest straight away or help the humans straight away. He's like, they both have to be here. They're both fighting for survival. There is a compromise here that we need to find. And I think that, especially in this day and age, that kind of mentality is sorely needed. And I like that he represents that.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go on a slight tangent here. I had a discussion with my dad this past weekend, which is why I'm bringing this up here. I read an article on my phone about a tweet Trump said. I'm not going to get into the details of what it was. It had to do with immigration, I think. And I brought it up. I just made the comment, oh, I wonder if he actually has the authority to do this, because shutting down the government, I mean, come on. Does any one individual have the authority to do that? I don't think they should. That's not the point. Point is, I bring this up, and he starts getting on my case about how it's fake news.
Oh, God.
And how, then he goes on, we had this 30-minute discussion back and forth. I try to bring up good points, of course, about the immigration situation as a whole. And I'm not going to get into the details, but let's just say he is very much on the right side of things. I'm very much in the centrist kind of things. And I didn't even argue against him that there needs to be some form of immigration, there needs to be some form of border control going on. I think there should be something. I'm not going to question it. But I do think that it shouldn't be straight up put a wall up. And I don't think it should be straight up open borders. There's a middle ground. And his argument against me was the liberals want it to be the exact opposite. There's no middle ground. You're not going to get it. And I'm like, with that attitude, of course we're not going to get it, because none of you guys want to see the middle ground. You fucking all are extremists on this bullshit. And that's why I appreciate this character so much, is because he sees this middle ground. He sees there needs to be compromise, because both sides have valid rights to be here, but they need to at least be willing to overlap and compromise to make it work.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you hit the nail on the head, really. There has to be a mutual desire to reach that middle ground in order to reach it. I think in any side in any conflict where the sides are completely unwilling to give ground or look at it entirely as a conflict, then the idea of reaching a kind of happy medium it has a really low chance of happening, because you saw that with San not willing to cede any ground to the humans, and that they all need to die because they're, like, ever since they've shown up, the forest has been dying. And look at them, they just killed the fucking forest spirit. No, all of the humans need to die. But at the same time, you have Eboshi saying, look, it's just a forest. I'm going to chop this stuff down so that I can take care of real people that I have taken under my care, that I will do anything to protect. I have taken the lowest and the most underrepresented of my society, and I will care for them by any means necessary. Both sides unwilling to cede any ground leads to the clusterfuck that is a walking plague god just showing up and killing everybody.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you guys are tired of extremist bullshit in politics, show people this movie. They might learn something. Speaking of that kind of topic, I'm going to jump to this question. I was kind of hoping to save it for later, but I think this is it's a good transition. Ryan, what do you think the true intentions are behind the words, to see unclouded by hate?
Oh boy. Oh, you are coming up with all these questions today. Okay.
This is a deep movie. It's easy to come up with good questions.
To see with eyes unclouded by hate. I think what Ashitaka brings to the story, and really to the conflict between the city dwellers and the forest dwellers, is a fresh perspective. It's not somebody who is so immersed in the situation that they can't see the bigger picture. They can't kind of zoom out. You look at San, who has literally lived in the forest and has been raised by wolf gods since infancy. Of course she's going to defend the forest, which has been her home until her dying breath. You have the city, who are a group of people that have been shunned by everybody else except Lady Eboshi, that have created this community for each other. Of course, if this random fucking moody preteen riding a giant wolf shows up to kill the person who's taken you in, of course we're going to shoot her. That's not even a question. So Ashitaka coming into the situation removed from all of those things allows him to see the greater picture and really allows him to help them find that middle ground. I think that's what that means.
I agree. Going back to what we were just saying, I think it allows him to see without any bias, without any allegiance to one side or the other. He's like, okay, y'all have this opinion, y'all have this opinion, and in this middle space here, this is what's getting fucked up because of your opinions. But no, I definitely agree. I think you're definitely on point with that one, and couldn't have said it better myself, honestly.
To see with eyes unclouded by hate. What I really want to know is, how did his shaman know that that was the mission? Literally, this kid just got cursed by a demon and can't stay in the forest. Like, told him, look, you're going to die, but you can decide how you go out. Your mission is this, which is completely removed from anything about the forest, anything about the village. Like, aside, like to the people in the village, Ashitaka is dead now. Ashitaka's gone, and nothing he does will affect them from now on. He can't. The mission isn't to go get cured and come back. He's dead to them, but yet somehow she knows your mission is to travel to this far land and see with eyes unclouded by hate. That's the most concrete, like, on point mysticism I have ever seen.
It's pretty good. I'd love to know how Miyazaki knew that was going to be such a relevant phrase all the way down into 2018.
Honestly, I think that's just. I think conflict is a key part of the human condition, sadly. Like, honestly, that, like, this is the type of movie that's always going to be poignant.
Yep. Because
there's always going to be some type of major conflict that this can apply to.
Without question. All right. Let's see. Speaking of conflict, would you have liked to see more context regarding the struggles with the samurai and the Asano people?
Actually, I didn't need it. I honestly didn't need it. The samurai and the Asano people, like, the samurai set up as, like, this, like, faraway antagonist to the Asano people was perfect. They played just the right amount of role because it just set them up as opposition to this community. It's like, we're not out here fucking up the forest for the hell of it. We're doing it so that we can make enough money to support ourselves and be independent from this society that has screwed us over at every turn. And, of course, Lady Eboshi, being so successful at it, is drawing the ire of powerful men. Mm-hmm. I didn't need more for that. That was the perfect kind of shadow antagonist for the Asano people.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're definitely a good secondary villain or background villain. I think they fit the role pretty well. Not really a direct threat, but just like a looming threat that kind of could be a bigger threat if it wasn't, kept in check. So yeah, I think it works.
Yeah. I think any more of them, aside from them just kind of swooping in at the last minute to add more fucking trouble to more chaos, I think any more of that would have detracted from the main story between the Asano people and the forest.
Indeed. Okay. I'm going to backtrack a bit to this. I have a question before we get to the last few deep ones here. So I've seen ahead in the Ghibli movies. I'm trying to keep ahead so I can get the stuff written up before we record and shit and get everything ready. So I can't answer this one fairly anymore. Ryan, how does the animation of this film compare to every animation we've seen in Ghibli thus far?
What I love about this animation is that it feels dated but not dated, if that makes any fucking sense.
I feel you.
Like, I can tell it, like, it's not all heavily laden CGI except for a couple of moments, and even then those CGI, like,
they blend
parts
in well.
and pieces blend in perfectly. Like, the only way you know that that's CGI is because there's literally no fucking way that a hand animator is gonna draw that mass of fucking tentacles running around like that damn fast.
If he
like,
doesn't, he's not committed enough.
If you have somebody that can hand draw and hand animate that shit, pay them double whatever the fuck you're paying. Like, seriously. But I love that the Studio Ghibli style really seeks to blur the line between that animation and the CGI.
Yep.
And they do that by both elevating the level of their hand animation and also kind of like not going overboard with the CGI. They only use it for certain pieces that they literally can't do otherwise, and they animate it in such a way that it doesn't stand out super hard against the other animation.
Well, last episode we discussed Whisper of the Heart, which did introduce CGI animation to their hand-drawn animation. I think this film just steps it up another level is all it is, and they do a good job building upon that, what they've learned.
Definitely. I would say that the use of CGI in Mononoke is definitely more subtle than Whisper of... Wait.
Yep.
Yes, I'm thinking... Yeah, I'm thinking of it. Yeah, Whisper of the Heart. Yes. Yep. Whisper of the Heart. I definitely think it was more subtle. That's not to say that the CGI in Whisper of the Heart was bad. I personally liked it. But for Studio Ghibli, that was definitely a first attempt.
Indeed.
And they're like, okay, we did it. It looks good. We can do it better. And then they did it. And they did it by not making it shinier or making it like all crazy with like ridiculous effects that are obviously CGI. They did it by making it so subtle that it just it elevated the state of the entire piece as opposed to just improving the CGI.
Of course. And I'll get in my 2 cents real quick. I think it's I don't think it ages too poorly. I think it still looks really solid for the most part. I would say I still like the retro style of Nausicaa personally, but that's just personal preference. But this one definitely is a standout among what we've seen so far. And like I said, I've read ahead a little bit, and the next few movies we're going to be doing, recording-wise anyway, are top-notch, in my opinion, for animation. But I think that they will lack some of the Miyazaki charm and story that this film brings to the table. But again, this is like a heavy hitter here. It's hard to compare shit to this one once you've seen it.
It is. It really is. And I think it's that subtlety that really makes it as timeless as it is. Mm-hmm. I think I can come back to this movie 10 years from now and still think that this is a gorgeous piece of animation. I think it's the subtlety that keeps it from aging, really.
Absolutely. Okay, I have 4 more here real quick, and we're not going to do any trivia, obviously, because this is a deep movie. There's too much discussion. Okay. I'm going to do a couple of these real quick. Number 1, why do you think a deer was chosen to represent the forest spirit? I'm actually very curious what you think of this one.
So, I personally like the fact that it wasn't a predator that was chosen as the forest spirit. I think it's because the stag, like they chose the stag to represent the life of, like, the life force and the life presence of the forest, but the stag also represents death because, I mean, of course the stag exists as prey. It lives and it dies.
It's part of the food chain.
It's part of the food chain. So rather than having the spirit of the forest be this crazy ass, like spooky ass demon spirit wolf that like exists at the top of the food chain and just does whatever the fuck it wants and then dies eventually of old age, I like the fact that the stag can represent both life and death. It represents the full cycle of the forest, the full cycle of life.
I think it's also the same inspiration used for Evital. Is it Evital? No, it's Xerneas in Pokemon X and Y. because it's also a deer Pokemon, and it's also supposed to be like the life Pokemon, so to speak. So I think they're both definitely drawing from the same inspiration, the same pool of ideas, and I definitely can see the comparisons here. Granted, it's like 10 years later, but still, same basic concept. So, I definitely agree that we have what is basically the symbolic form of life here. And I think it also helps that from a more visual perspective, the antlers look like tree branches, and well, it's representing a forest full of trees. I was good for the simple route, but I like the deepness there. It's good. It's good. Really good. Okay. Number two. And this one we kind of touched on already, but just to kind of see if we have anything else to say about it. What is the significance of Ashitaka and San's relationship, and how does it play into the narrative of the film? Or does it? I have some thoughts.
All right, yeah, hit me with it, please. I've been talking for a while.
No, I like it. It gives me a chance to catch your breath after our synopsis. So, okay. So Ashitaka is from Man's World. We can firmly establish that. He is, at the end of the film, he stays behind to help rebuild society within Irontown. San is a child of the forest. We don't know how long she's been out there, but we can assume her whole life, or a vast majority of it. And so she represents the forest. I think their relationship and their whole story arc is sort of a reflective. It's a mirror to what the relationship of humans and the forest need to be in this film. They need to be able to work together, compromise, overlap, and for mutual survival, be together. And they sort of represent that. I mean, in the end, they have this long distance thing, sort of indicating that while they're together and while they're working for the mutual benefit of one another, they have to do so separately because man will inevitably poison and corrupt the nearby forest because they do need to consume, they do need to build, and unfortunately some things do break in that situation. And likewise, the forest needs to be kind of distant because it needs to grow and thrive, and it can't do that in a urban setting, so to speak. So I think that's sort of what their relationship represents, and I don't know, I kind of like how that plays into it a bit. It's not in your face and direct, but when you look back at it, it's like, oh, that seems very obvious when you look back at it.
You know what? I really like that. I really like that synopsis. I mean, I definitely agree with it. I would just add that I feel like both Ashitaka and San represent almost the best that their respective homes have to offer. Yep. Because San, while she has that reverence and that kind of brutality of the forest, she also has this ability to kind of reach that middle point, to kind of give halfway once somebody has earned respect. Where at the same time, Ashitaka, who can also summon that brutality which I thought was really, really cool, like having the curse mark give him like that crazy ass strength, like the power of hatred is only to destroy. So when he turns on his fucking destroy form, he will wreck some people, but he chooses not to use that because he wants to add to life rather than take it away. He can, and he has that willingness to do so to defend those that he loves, but it's both of their abilities to kind of try and reach the middle ground that I think is really important to highlight in both of their characters.
Absolutely, and to add to that too, I'll throw in here. They're also both very young characters, both like teenagers, I guess, like maybe as old as 18 tops, probably more like 16. And younger characters tend to be representative of the future because they have so much more growth and life ahead of them that not only is their relationship
fantastic.
So it shows that relationship will be hopefully how what the world turns into, and I like that. So, all right, building off that a little bit. Next question. In Pompoko, we asked ourselves if there's a limit to human expansion. Here now we ask ourselves, is it more of a balance humans have to have with nature, and what does that balance need to look like for our mutual survival? This is kind of an open-ended question with no solid answer, but I'm just curious where your thoughts lie on this one.
Well, I definitely feel like Mononoke is it's more of an ode to what Miyazaki thinks could be possible, or rather wishes could be possible.
What should be possible?
Yeah, what should be possible. Pampoko is more of a commentary on how it is currently and how it seems destined to remain, whereas Mononoke is definitely kind of a love letter to the things that could be if we tried really hard and tried not to screw over the earth. There can be a balance that's achieved with mutual respect and deference. So I definitely kind of see this as his ode to the world that could be.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah, I'll move on to the next one real quick. Last question I got here for you, Ryan. And I think we've touched on this one a little bit as well, but again, just to make sure we covered all our bases. Can you see ways in this film as being relevant to the modern age outside of the struggle of man versus nature? Like I said, I think we've covered that a little bit.
Yeah, I think we covered that a lot. I mean, you hit it on the head with the idea of needing to be able to compromise, and that the middle ground between both sides can only be achieved if both sides are willing to work towards it. I think this movie also shows what happens when sides are not willing to work towards it, and the disasters that can come from the dangers of extremism. Extremism, words.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
No, I know what you mean. The extremities of opinions on the left, right, up, down, all that stuff.
Right. I mean, we had already said that conflict is kind of is a part of the human condition, and there's always going to be a big conflict that you can apply this to. That this will have a parallel to. So I think in any situation with opposition, this really showcases a way to try and get out of it, to kind of take a step back and look at the larger picture. Don't just focus on how this affects you and yours, but also consider the repercussions it has for others. And when you take into account the entire scope of the situation, you'll be more equipped to reach that middle ground.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's all I have for the discussion questions. I had to think what I was saying there. So moving on to a quick conspiracy corner segment. Music. Okay, so no direct references here, but from what I've been reading, the closest I got here is that like in Totoro, the spirits live separately from the humans in secret. So you see them, but they don't really make an appearance except in certain situations, and in most cases they're just kind of hiding in secret from the humans, kind of like they do in Totoro. So nothing crazy, nothing too crazy. No trivia this week and no mailbag. But again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or you want to ask us questions, or you want to just say, "Hey, Ryan, you're a cool guy. Don't be lonely," send your questions to us via Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, and Ryan, what is that email?
That is evacstation@gmail.com.
Absolutely. And of course, if you want to help us out as well, $1 a month to Patreon. Cheaper for $12 a year. Basically, it's cheaper than buying any of these movies individually. You can help support us to do this show on and on and on, my friends, and we'll keep doing all sorts of fun stuff, including upcoming next month for you. It'll be a few months for us because we're recording it here soon. The Halloween special. You'll be getting 2 podcasts a week because we're fucking stupid, and we like Halloween, and it's gonna be a good time. We already have some names picked out for what movies we want to do. We're excited. It's going to be fun. All right. Moving on to the final segment here, which is the closing thoughts, Ryan, where we critique the movie. If you haven't seen the link down below, guys, click it. It tells you how our ranking system works, from platinum to shit. We have 7 ranks that kind of determine what we think about the movie. Ryan, I think we both know where it's going to fall, but I'll let you take the floor first. How would you rank this film on our scale?
This is the first platinum I'm giving out. This is the first. It might be the only, honestly, but god damn it. This is a movie that everybody needs to see. It is gorgeous. It is poignant. It is remarkably well written. Just see it. Like, kids can see it and have a great time with it, and then adults can see it and think. God damn. It does everything. It does everything. Just do it.
Likewise, I'll agree, and I'll keep it short because we've been going on a little while longer than usual, but you know what, this is worth discussing. I'm going to say platinum as well. This is my second platinum. If you guys remember, this is up there with fucking Grave of Fireflies, and honestly, I still think both films are something that everyone needs to see at least once because they instill so many lessons about compromise, seeing situations from the other point of view, and there's just so much.
Did I give Grave of the Fireflies a platinum?
I did, but we didn't have the system set up then. If you want to retroactively give it something, you certainly can.
I can't remember, honestly. I can't. I know it was either platinum or gold.
Okay.
It was either platinum.
I'll take your word for it. But yeah, no, it's definitely up there. Without question, it is probably, if not my first favorite, definitely second favorite. I like World War II lessons. I think you learn a lot from those. But I think both these are, I think it's a timeless film nonetheless, just with what you can learn from it. And if you have not seen Princess Mononoke yet, English, Japanese, whatever, make it your mission to see it as soon as possible. Because it's, if you're not going to see Grave of Fireflies, at least see this one. This is a fun one, and it still teaches all the valuable lessons that Grave of Fireflies does kind of hit on a little bit.
It's less soul crushing.
Yeah, but Ryan, I think a little soul crushing is needed every now and then. Not all the time.
I mean, you're right. But for people who want to get an amazingly poignant message without uncontrollably sobbing at the death of children, this is your movie.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that is our podcast this week. We took a long time to discuss this one, but I think this is the one movie that definitely needed it, without question.
Absolutely.
So thank you for joining us this week. Next week, let me check my schedule here. We'll be discussing, oh, wow, it's the next one we're actually recording. My Neighbor, the Yamadas. And then after that, we'll be and after that, Ryan, we'll actually be recording in order of the rest of the movies. So we'll be able to keep track of things better.
Nice. Can't wait.
Yep. So stay tuned next week for more of the inappropriately named SummerSlam in fall, and we'll see you after the credits.
Bye.
Quiver like a bowstring's pull.